Hi, it's Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the birth rates in the more devout tribal Islamic societies. These are, basket case economies and that sort of thing, but they have quite a prodigious capacity to procreate. And what got me onto this was an absurd, silly, globalist United Nations puff piece about Islamic societies, particularly Afghanistan and Pakistan, where they were talking about the amount of newborn babies that die within days or within a week or so of being born, and how this is a huge tragedy. And there's only two solutions for this. We've got to move all these Afghani people out of Afghanistan and into the West. So that's a convenient, very coincidental that's right in line with the globalist project there. Or massive NGO aid has to be brought to Afghanistan, so the NGOs have to be given monumental sums of money to administer the aid. Now the piece, one of the pieces, it was a few, but the main one that I saw was an outrageous propaganda, and was designed to not inform, but to emotionally titillate the reader. The little Abdul, his tiny little hands reach out for his mother, who is crying. And she's dressed in pink, of course, who is crying because little Abdul, little tiny Abdul, his little tiny baby hands are reaching out for help from the white evil fascist Nazis that just won't give in. Little Abdul dies in his mother's arms, and everybody cries. The doctor says, "We did everything we could. We don't have the resources. We're being denied the resources by those evil fascist Nazi white countries. And if only they would give us more, we could have saved little Abdul." So really, little Abdul's death is murder committed by those fucking white Nazis. So this is the thrust of the piece. And there's a few other sort of similar stories. I know Sula is crying because little baby Fatima has just died because she didn't have, an oxygen mask and this. So it's very one-sided and very, very emotional and very absent the key sort of facts. So let's have a look at some of these facts now. About 70,000 babies die each year in Afghanistan within a week or two of being born. Now, Afghanistan, with a population of close to 40 million, has, wait for this, this is 1.35 million births every year. Now, considering the amount of deaths they have, and life expectancy isn't long in Afghanistan, or Pakistan for that matter, considering the deaths they have, the population of Afghanistan still can grow by 3%. That's close to double what the Western population increases are from natural births. Can grow by 3% per annum, even with all the. Now, this is an infant death rate that is 42 times what the first world infant mortality rate is at birth or shortly after birth. 42 times. That's insane. But why do I say or allege that the article was misleading? Well, nearly 60% of the births in Afghanistan are from cousins procreating. So the amount of deformities on the babies, being born with one lung instead of two, all sorts of deformities. The amount of deformities are so exceptional and so widespread that the chances of surviving without massive medical intervention is very slim indeed. And when you go to Islamic countries, you can see the effects of this inbreeding, where cousins will procreate, then the next generation of cousins will procreate. So they're not getting any fresh genes into the lineage. And you can, I mean, if you haven't seen the sort of deformities that occur from this sort of inbreeding, then I have. We've been in an Islamic state when they have a particular day or days each year when the hideously crippled and deformed are brought into the city to beg for money from the populace. Now, in Islamic societies, people who are mentally or physically handicapped are under the direct protection of Allah. So if you harm them or kill them or hurt them, then you can never go to heaven. So such as Allah's protection. So so there's no sort of euthanasia at birth in the way that a child or baby that hideously deformed may be treated in that way. So you have this unusual amount. And there was a village next to a river when I was in one country. I was there on business and was driving past and it shocked me to the point where I had to really steel myself to not vomit. The extent of the deformed people at the side of the road and their hideous deformities. The mouth sort of halfway up across the head and the teeth coming out of the lower jaw and things that you can't even imagine. So anyway, the effect of inbreeding. So what they don't say in this article is that because of the amount of inbreeding that goes on, where again first cousins are this first cousin means you've got one grandparent in common. Second cousin is that your great grandparents, and third cousin is that your great great grandparent. So from say great great grandparent as being a common thing, typically you're safe from there. I mean, the recommendations to the serious geneticists say you really should be the fourth, so great 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 grandparent is the common. But nonetheless, these are first cousins, and then the next generation, the first cousins do it. Now, because women are fairly limited in their movements in some of these countries, it seems to be that cousins and nephews and so on are nieces and whatnot are procreating with more than half the conceptions are from those sort of liaisons. So it's hardly surprising that 5% of the babies born are dying within a week or two, and then another dollop are dying within the first year, and so on. Now, the argument in the articles is that, well, we just need more medical care. I mean, if we get absolutely huge amounts of medical care at monumental expense, that will offset the problems with the close relatives procreating. But they could easily have sort of said, they should have pointed that out in the article. So they failed to point that out. They also failed to point out that by preference, these village people are choosing to have, rural villages are choosing to have their births at home rather than come to a hospital. And there are some cultural reasons for that. The doctor might be a man, or there are certain sort of taboos that these very simple tribal people have. The people that are procreating may already have deformities because they in turn were first cousins procreating, and so the list goes on, and also things like very bone deformities that may not show up until later on in puberty, where the bones when they break easily but won't heal or won't knit. Say going back to examples like Toulouse-Lautrec, that sort of thing. So it's insane here to not deal with, say, well, why don't they stop having first cousins procreating? That would eliminate nearly all of these problems. Not all, but nearly all of them. But that's not mentioned or put into any sort of perspective there. The idea that these rural people are insisting on having births at home and just having a like a Islamic priest, bless the whole thing. That to them is fine, even though that's quite high risk, particularly if there's any complications with the birth. But each woman has nearly 5 births per woman in Afghanistan. That's incredible. Again, it's like 1.5, 1.6 or so in the West. And here is nearly 5. So per woman. So and they're starting to procreate at an earlier age than they do in the West. So these are pieces that you see in the press. This is just yet another example of failing to declare the facts and to be clear about it. The way the article's written, or the articles plural are written, is it's evil white people just denying medical help to these poor Afghanistans and Pakistanis who've done nothing, and they're only doing their best and that sort of stuff, when they're failing to talk about the elephant of the room, which is, again, first cousins procreating or engaging in dangerous births in rural areas. So I thought I'd mention that, but this idea of when these quite simple Islamic peasants move to the West, which is very much part of the globalist project. The globalists tear themselves to pieces, fall over themselves to get these peasants over to the West. Then their birth rate drops back slightly, but not very much. So they're procreating, not working, or not making enough money, or near enough to support that many children, and the intensive medical care that's required for all these children with handicaps and deformities. So they're moving to the West and living directly off the Western taxpayer. Sometimes families where all the children are handicapped, they're being moved to the West and given medical care at Western taxpayer expense. It's got to be absolute insanity, but it's something the globalists are actively encouraging and pushing. I think I think it should be made mandatory that you can't marry your cousin. Third cousins and fourth, fifth cousins and so on, fine, but you can't marry your cousin. And those who are married to their first cousin, or choose to marry them when they come to the West, that shouldn't be allowed. No, if you want to do that, you can go back to your country there. Now, I know it's in Islamic culture that they do this sort of thing, but it's not compatible with a Western lifestyle, and I think something should be done about it. You've been with Tastus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.